introduction. So you see that we have 4 presenters, but there will be 3 segments, if you will. Trish is going to start the process. Julie and Kristen will follow with their segment, and Jim Brown will be the third presentation session. So let me tell you about Trish. Trish Richelle Trifolo has 34 years of experience in teaching face-to-face, including 17 of them online. She holds degrees in biology, anatomy, neuroanatomy, and education with a specialty in instructional design for online learning. Her research interests are in learning styles and brain pathways. An Air Force spouse, Trish has taught around the world. She recently left Hardin-Simmons University to become the distance learning specialist for Wayland Baptist University. She sits on the board of Texas Distance Learning Association, the TXDLA, and is the chair of education for the Texas Academy of Science and is president of the Texas Blackboard Users Group. She is a software master presenter in these Innovators series. So Trish, let me give you the presentation and let you take it away.
All right, sounds good. And hopefully you can see my PowerPoint up here now.
Not yet.
Not yet.
You should see something on your screen. It may be hidden by the PowerPoint.
No, I did.
I can see it, Trish.
I can see it.
Okay.
Oh,
Everyone's saying they can see
You're
it.
good.
It's just
All right. All right. That's all right. So I'm going to talk about best practices for content delivery with an emphasis at looking at learning styles. And basically our purpose as instructors, since most of us are higher ed here, is to guide our students through a learning process. And if you're teaching face-to-face, most of the time you're kind of the keeper of the books or the knowledge. And a common phrase was the sage on the stage. And you would share your knowledge by lecture, PowerPoint, particular notes, experiences, and the students would glean what they can from you and then kind of regurgitate it back in some semblance of order to get a grade. As we've moved into more technology and blended courses and online, we've kind of changed slightly in our approaches, and we're looking at more of a collaborative type of arrangement, where we realize that people come from lots of different experiences with lots of different information to share, and through technology we can access lots of different information in lots of different ways. So there are considerations that we want to make in online learning in particular. One is the pedagogy. Are you going to be more of a person who is following that sage on the stage type of pedagogy, or are you more of a constructionalist? If you want to construct knowledge, have your students build different things. You want to look to see who your students are. Where are they coming from? Do they come from years of experience in a particular field? Because they will have a very interesting input, a very different outlook on a particular subject than someone who just knows the bare bones basis of it. There are lots of different experiences. You have students that are non-traditional students. You have some very young students. So you need to know who it is you're working with in a collaborative sense for online. Presence and community are extremely important in blended and online learning. In the classroom, you can see the people you're talking to. You can read facial expressions. You can kind of get a sense of how things are being taken. But when you're going technology, you don't get that feedback right away. So you depend on different clues to see how the information is being brought across. And so you need to establish a learning community. The students get to know each other. They have to kind of trust each other. And you can establish community in lots of different ways. discussions, wikis, blogs, email, and you as an instructor needs to have a presence. You need to be able to influence the direction of the learning. You need to support the students in their presentation of their material, and so you have a very much a presence. It's not a correspondence type of learning, but an actual community of interaction. And then, of course, you have to reflect back on your own teaching strategies. Each of us has a way of presenting materials which we're comfortable with, and sometimes we have to stretch a little bit to go outside that comfort zone to present material. So if we look at some of the principles of good practice or best practices in online education, I've just kind of thrown up some of the main points that I think are usually brought to this type of discussion. And then I'll show you, and I know Jim and Kristen will show you some of the different ways that they bring this into their examples. You want to encourage student-faculty interactions. You want to encourage cooperative learning so that each person brings something and then the next person builds on to what was brought, and then someone with a little different perspective approaches it from a different way and increases the knowledge that way. You want to encourage active learning. You need lots of interaction. You need to reinforce that learning. You want to make it interesting. You want to have lots of different ways of interacting with the content so that it doesn't get boring or old. It's important to give prompt feedback. If the students don't think you're listening or that you care about the class, then they're not going to put any effort into the learning either. So knowing that the instructor is interested, wants to know what you have to contribute, and also help guide them down the path so that they feel confident in what they're presenting, that's a very important part of online education. I think all of us know there's an emphasis on time management. That's probably one of the major difficulties in online learning. Sometimes it's the instructor's time management, and a lot of times it's the students realizing there's a lot of material and how do they delegate their learning across the board so that they can acquire all that they need. Students come in with lots of diverse talents and learning styles. We all have preferences in learning, and there's not any one particular way to learn something, but we do have very specific ways that we're comfortable with, and I'm going to address that in just a minute. You need to let students know what to expect and communicate high expectations in a classroom, and you also need to effectively use technology. So with those principles or underpinning to this type of education, I'd like to talk a little bit about learning styles. If I ask you right now to go out and gather information on this particular car, I would venture to guess that some of you would go to Car and Driver magazine and get some information. Some of you might drive a Corvette and bring back information. Some might talk to somebody who owns one. Somebody else might go in and get all the performance statistics on this car. But whatever you like to gather, that's going to be the first thing you're going to go and get and bring to a classroom. And usually the first thing you go to, the first method that you use to get information is your dominant learning style. A learning style is a combination of three things. The cognitive process in your brain. This is genetic. This is a pathway set down. It's established long before you start to use it. It's just refined and improved over time. We all have a preference for the mode of interaction, whether we like to listen or read or look at videos, how we process that information. And we also have some strategies to attain that information and work with it. And all three of those make up learning styles. So for example, a person who likes to listen will be very comfortable hearing speeches or lectures. A person who reads likes to look at written words. Most of our current students are not dominant listeners or readers. The majority of the students in my research came back as iconic or direct experience type of learners. And that kind of fits with the millennial type learner. They're used to looking at movies and graphics and pictorials and instant information where they can manipulate it and work with it. And so iconic and direct experience are fairly common modes. Once they start to bring in the information, we have people who like to maybe work with numbers or some logical pathway to understand it a little bit better. Some people come to better understanding by writing or working with words. Other people like to build or design or plan and put things together in an inanimate kind of strategy. And then, of course, we have a very large contingent right now that tend to be more social. They learn, they gather some information, and then they talk to people and interact and build on that knowledge by saying, well, what's your experience and how did it work for you? And that didn't work for me. And so all of these combine into a learning style. Now, in the brain, we have specific areas where we put information. In the posterior part, we have visual information. In the temporal part, we do auditory. We tend to integrate processes in our frontal cortex. And this schematic with the pathways is just to show you that there are hundreds of thousands of pathways in everyone's brain. And how we utilize these pathways is integral to how we learn. So if I'm outside in my backyard and I see something fly by, it's red, and I happen to hear a song that's associated with it, then I might think, well, birds fly, and a red bird that I saw, maybe that's a cardinal, and I might associate the cardinal's sound that I might have heard before, or I may go out and get a recording and listen to it. And by making an association between these three, I can go ahead and talk about this bird that I saw or that I learned about. And so I have this pathway established. Now, we make multiple interconnections when we learn. And as we learn, the more we use a pathway, the stronger or more dominant that pathway becomes. So let's talk about the final pathways, and I'll lead you into what Julie and Kristen and Jim are going to talk about. In pathways, when you want to introduce your students to something brand new, something they've never seen before, you want to give them the opportunity to learn in a mode and a strategy that they're comfortable with. They need a very, very clean pathway. They can see where they're going, they can see what's surrounding them, they can see what might influence them, and they feel comfortable following this path because it's clear. And as they become more knowledgeable in this topic, you can start to get to a pathway that's like this middle one, where the path meanders a bit. You can't quite see where you're going, but you've been down a path or a similar one before, and you can be influenced by what's to the side, but you know you can still follow that path and attain that end point that you want to reach. And it's not so scary to go down that pathway. So these two types of learning pathways or learning styles are very good in introducing information online. What you want to stay away from is this type of pathway. If you force a student down a pathway that they're not familiar with, that they don't use on a regular basis, and they have no knowledge of where they are, it's like driving in the dark with poor headlights. You can't see where you're going. You're fearful someone's going to hit you and blindside you from the side. You get frustrated. you don't even want to move forward, and most likely you're going to stop learning and you're going to quit and go away. And we don't want that. So we have lots of different learning styles and we have lots of different best practices. And so I think Kristen and Julie are going to tell you a little bit about some of the different things they've done with library instruction and incorporating both online and face-to-face learning.
Okay, great. Thank you. You're about on time. I forgot to give you a 2-minute warning, but I think you ended just exactly on time. There is one question. We'll open it up later to the general community, but let me ask you, Karen asked about learning, that says that learning communities take time. How are people balancing the amount of time to present stuff versus time to reflect and create learning communities? You want to take a brief stab at that, and then we can open it during the general Q&A.
I think as far as establishing learning communities, that's one of the very first things that you have to do, and it can be done fairly easily and fairly quickly, and it builds over a little bit of time so that you establish a confidence in that community. Now, putting in different ways to learn material, especially if you're in a very basic course, it takes some time. You do have to figure out what you're comfortable with teaching, and you start out with that, and then you look to see what resources are out there that you can quickly kind of convert what you're using into some of the different pathways or different ways of learning that will be easy for you to establish.
Okay, well, thank you. We will push that out to the rest of the presenters, but right now let me talk to you about Julie and Kristen. Julie Nichols is the Library Instruction Coordinator for Northeast Lakeview College, the newest of the LMO colleges, located in San Antonio, Texas. She's worked in various types of libraries for more than 20 years, and specifically in community college libraries for the past 6 years. At Northeast Lakeview College, she teaches approximately 75 one-shot instruction sections each year, and also manages a required online information literacy course for 800 to 900 students enrolled in an introductory English composition class. Kristen Johnson is originally from Chicago and received her master's in library and information sciences from Dominican University. She currently lives in Texas, where she works as a public service librarian for Northwest Vista College. And she adds that she loves zombies, chocolates, and coffee. So let me turn. Which one of you want to take the screen at this point? Julie?
Kristen's going to drive.
Okay, Kristen's going to drive? Okay. Let me turn it over to
Zombie lover,
Kristen.
yeah. Uh-oh.
So, Kristen, I turn it over to you. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Can everybody see that, just to make sure before we go too far?
Right.
Good. All right. Well, today Kristen and I want to share with you how at NLC we're using SoftChalk and trying to appeal to a variety of learning styles. Now, our situation is a little bit different. We don't have a semester-long credit course. Instead, we've used SoftChalk to develop a set of learning activities that are directed towards a specific set of students. These students are enrolled in a course called SDEV 0370. Now, this is a semester-long student development course that's required of students who are enrolled in 2 or more developmental classes. Now, developmental classes are for students who are not quite ready, based on their entrance exam scores, for college credit work. So we have developmental classes in math, in English, and in reading. And some of you may be more familiar with the term remedial. The SDEV 0370 students have a career paper and project, and these students traditionally came to the library for face-to-face one-shot instruction sessions. And as you can see from the numbers, we typically have several hundred students enrolled in these STEP 0370 classes each semester. We didn't feel that our traditional instruction approach was very effective. Our one-shot instruction sessions were either 50 or 75 minutes long, and even though we incorporated activities and hands-on learning in our sessions, there really was just too much content for these students to absorb and then be able to apply later when they were working on their career paper and project. So we consulted with the student development faculty, and we came up with the idea of using SoftChalk lessons to teach the students about the various information resources they could use for their assignment. And we saw three main advantages to using SoftChalk: the time, interactivity, and the ability to engage students. Now, in terms of time, the lessons are available 24/7. So the time to complete them doesn't take away from their regular classroom time. And we know that classroom time is very precious. And although the student development faculty typically set a due date for the students are able to work at their own pace, and they can repeat the lessons as needed for comprehension. And as well, beginning this semester, the students actually have to earn a score of 70% on each one of the lessons in order to earn credit in their student development class. They're very interactive. The lessons incorporate videos demonstrating skills, and then the students can immediately practice that skill. Self-checks are built in to provide the students quick feedback so they can self-assess their own learning. We were able to incorporate a lot of different content into the lessons, and as I mentioned, there are videos demonstrating how to do certain things, but then there are also fun intro videos for each one of the 4 lessons to immediately engage the students. And as well, we were able to use a variety of SoftChalk activities, such as hotspots, quiz poppers, and flashcards, and others, to provide that fun practice for the students and sneak in a little learning as well too. And now Kristen's going to give you a look at one of our lessons.
All right. Okay. This is an example of just one of the lessons that we created in SoftChalk. This is about our catalog. Now, students, when they actually see this, and I'll show this a little bit later, would actually choose their instructor and also fill in their name, so that way we could track their scores in the score center. So we give them a little bit of information about the module itself in the beginning, and then we usually always have a extra normal video where we have a little bit of humor in there to keep them entertained and engaged. And it's pretty easy to navigate. We use the previous and next buttons on the top or on the bottom. And then we also give them a nice overview of what they're going to be learning in the module. So each module always starts like this. So it gives them a nice overview of what they're going to see. And then the next part, we have a little bit of introduction to the catalog, what it is, and we try to incorporate words and pictures. And then, of course, we have an interactive game here. We're trying to get them to brainstorm, and so in this, they can actually brainstorm in these boxes, and we see everything that they type, which is kind of fun, just to keep them engaged, because we want them to keep going through the module. And then we have a Go Animate video. So this is kind of a visual interpretation of Boolean operators. It's kind of fun, where they stand up and sit down, depending on if they're using and or. It is amusing, I think. And then, of course, we have the words too. So we give them a visual interpretation, and we also give them one for reading. So we're trying to incorporate as many different learning styles as we can. And then we have a game to show what they just learned. So this is how to use and or. So in this case, they're two similar concepts. So you'd have medical or healthcare. And it actually would make noises and let you know if you got it right or wrong. And if you got it wrong, it actually bounces out. And you can redo it. So it gives them feedback too, to show them whether or not they're on the right path. And then we have a video, a Camtasia video with closed captioning, where we actually show them how to use the catalog to search for books. And then immediately after that, we have a nice interactive hover picture where they can actually show us how they just learned how to determine whether or not a book is an e-book or a print book. And so it tells them, you know, correct or incorrect. And then we have another video, another Camtasia video with closed captioning, and this one is just on how to use an electronic book. You know, how to getting to know the usernames and passwords that they need to know, and how to actually open the books and all that good stuff. And then we have a quick review. We tell them what we're going to tell them, we tell them, and then we tell them what we told them. And then we have a quiz, just to see how they're doing and all the good stuff. And if I was logged in right now, there'd be a little box at the bottom, and it would give them the score as they take the test. So it's kind of right there. So that's just one of the modules that we did, and we actually host it in our LibGuide. This is just a website that we use to host lots of things, because since we're a little bit different than most, we don't have an LMS to host our courses. We're actually, it is going to be an option in the future, but as of right now, we're just hosting our modules online. So anyone can go in there and take it. Most people don't just go in there and take it, but it's available, so you can actually go and look at it yourselves if you'd like. And on the guide, we give information on how to use the modules, and demonstrations and contact points, and also within each module itself, or I guess the tab for each module, we also give the actual links of everything that we mentioned in the module, and some more backup information. So we have it in the module itself, we also have it on the guide, and we have a chat box right here, so actually if students have any questions, they can contact us immediately, as well as our phone number and email addresses. So that's our LibGuide and our SoftChalk tutorials. And then just, if you're just a quick show of our actual cloud, this is our score center. So this is when I was talking about the drop-down menus. We have it broken up by instructor and class, so the students can pick which instructor they're doing and which class they're doing, and then they write their name, and so we capture the data by module and by class and course. So it makes it nice and easy to gather all that information in one place. And then going back to our PowerPoint, just to recap, SoftChalk, we used a lot of different software. We used Camtasia, Extra Normal, and we also did some Prezi and animations in there, some GoAnimate, and Snagit. So it was really easy to use a lot of different software and use those in our lessons to really make it a lot more interactive and fun to look at. And we actually noticed that students are responding positively to this new approach. This year, we just had our pilot year.
Let me interrupt. There's about a minute left. But let me say this about this. You know, in 2 weeks we're going to have a session in which we're going to talk about in more detail the differences between, you know, the learning in face-to-face and online. So let's not talk too much about this, because we want to make this a teaser to come back in 2 weeks and see what the differences are.
Well, no worries. I was actually just going to say that our online students are just kicking butt versus our face-to-face students. They're definitely doing a lot better than our face-to-face students. And those are just the average scores. So it's 65% for the online, so they're getting at least 6 to 7 questions correct, versus our face-to-face about 4. So is that enough of a teaser?
Okay, good enough. Anyway, let me. You do have one question. And let's do this quickly, because we need to give Jim enough time for his and for the Q&A. Is there a reason that you don't allow them to do a pre-test to establish what they already know?
It really just was a time factor. So that's part of the issue is we don't know what they already know. We do know that these particular students, like I said, what we were really trying to do was give them the information that they needed for their particular assignment and give it to them in a way that helped them learn how to do this research effectively using all these different information sources. We do have another class that we do with a different set of students that does involve a pre and a post test, and there's a lot of SoftChalk features involved in that as well too. And it's actually hosted in our LMS, which is Canvas.
Steve, can you hear? We've lost audio.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, now everybody can hear you. Yes, yes. Wonderful.
Okay, I will introduce myself. I'm Dr. Jim Brown, and I was a former dean at Ocean County College.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Biology for Roche, and also Assistant Commissioner of Health for the state of New Jersey. Ooh, someone's audio was giving us trouble. Anyhow, I moved to Ocean County College, and we helped put our nursing program totally online, except for the clinicals. So we got $500,000 from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to do that. But our problem was this was a one-day-a-week nursing program, so they had the clinicals to do in that one day. But the trouble is they also had to take the other courses, such as anatomy and physiology and science. And anyhow, that forced us to put science online.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Students learn 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they see and hear, 70% of what they say, and 90% of what they say and do. Now, I've got 3 that are just started college, and I've got 2 teenagers, and 1 younger than that. The bottom 3 are all adopted. But let me tell you, this I would have to say this is very true. As I told you, our anatomy and physiology, we had to figure a way of getting it totally online to work with our one-day-a-week nursing program. Now, the hands-on of a laboratory, you had to try to create this thing online. Now, when they do in the labs, okay, students learn 90% of what they say and do. That's a typical face-to-face laboratory. But we had to look around for, okay, how are we going to do this online? But before we get there, I just wanted to say when you put things online, and this was the problem we had with right away when we first did it in nursing, it was death by outlines. Everybody put these outlines that just went from here to eternity. And students learn 10% of what they read. This was great for putting students to sleep. If they were having trouble sleeping, this was a great way to go. And that was a problem starting out. So many of the faculty members just did put these outlines, and this is way back at the beginning. So we've learned from there. One of the things was we quickly adopted SoftChalk, saw what it did for us. They had these interactive web pages. I used to design using Dreamweaver, but when I saw this, SoftChalk, you can actually put it up and teach a faculty member to use it in 2 hours. It has pop-up text, quizzes, games. Students love games. And now they can actually run it on their cell phone. They love it. As I said, students love games, and this is, you know, a little crossword puzzle here, and this was in science. I put this up for Biology 1, and students love this. I can either put it right at the front of the classroom, they can do it web-assisted or totally online. With the hands-on part of it, we actually went to a group called Hands-On Labs. They're in Colorado, and they produce what's called a lab pack. It's this little lab in a box, microscope, and it comes out to your house on your front doorstep. But this solved our problem for us because we could put science totally online now, and they would actually get a fetal pig, and yep, they did it right in their own homes. But sure enough, it was hands-on, and as far as transferring. So when I was dean, so many people, other deans, told me they will not accept our courses unless we had a hands-on laboratory. So that kind of knocked out us going the virtual way. With SoftChalk, it was just beautiful. You would, when you see it, it's not death by outline. They're colorful. All the things we talked about at the beginning of today, you can do in SoftChalk. I just love it. Now, on my online science course, what I tried to do there, the discussions are key. And what I tried to do in microbiology is whatever was happening today, disease outbreaks, that sort of thing. That's always a fun thing. Like right now, we have an outbreak going on in Quebec City, and you know, all the students get involved in it, and it's just what's happening today. It's the students really enjoy that aspect of microbiology, and it's Legionnaire's disease. As far as I follow the ABCs of high-quality online discussions. The first thing you do is acknowledge what a student tells you. Build on those students' ideas. You add additional content, perspectives, and then conclude with a focused follow-up question for all of them to participate in. Another cool thing, I use YouTubes quite a bit. There's a lot of them out there. I try to find the ones that are closed captioned, but this is an oldie but goodie here. So the story of Louis Pasteur works well in micro. Students also learn they love shooting their own videos. And I'll tell you, they have the expertise where we don't. So they love to watch videos from other students, and this way you're making learning multidimensional. Here's an example of where a student actually has their microscope here. They're doing gram staining of slides to be observed under the microscope, and they actually take pictures and share those pictures with the other students. Plus, this way, I know they're actually doing the work. Many students make it a family project, and it's a lot of fun with that. We have one professor that really loves using Wimba. This is lecture capture, but instead of sitting up there and doing a whole lecture, what they do is really use it for homework assignments. And if they're not there online, they can save it and other students can see it, and it's worked very well. Now, other things I've done, I started this online field trip experience, and I have actually soldiers that are taking the course, the Biology 1, over in Afghanistan, and they're especially with the military, they can be all over the world. But this is cool. I have them, now if they can't get outside, I give them a virtual field trip experience because they can go to the website and find out, hey, what's going on at Yosemite, talk about outbreaks. But they write a paper, and writing the paper, it's a capstone experience, and they use peer coaching. So they'll go to a local park, identify some plant life there, and start to write it up. The first draft, they write it up, they don't send it to me, they send it to another student. And then that student reads it, suggests changes, goes back to the original student. They have this rubric. They then send it to me. I read it. This is the first time I'm getting it. It's been through the washing machine once. I send it back. They revise it again. It's revise, revise, revise. And then finally, I get it, evaluate it, and send it on. And this way, it really has, when I was at New Jersey City University, this really helped the quality of student writing because it takes a whole semester, but revise, 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 and especially in science. So this is great for cooperative learning. Merlot, great place where you can get learning objects, and they're available free. Quality matters. You have other peers look at your course, and it gives you this good housekeeping seal of approval kind of thing. So other professors are telling you how good or where your course needs help. I just want to put in a plug. I'm going to be down at the 18th Annual Sloan Consortium talking about best practices teaching science online to military members and veterans. Also, I I was featured in The Scientist, all about also teaching to the deployed military and veterans. There's a whole brand new field there, and it's all about adult learning. Another plug, this book, Teaching Lab Science, Courses Online, the back appendix was written by me about teaching micro, totally online. Now, some of the feedback. My first online course was all text and white page. The professor just made an extensive outline, and they hated it. The course design was beautiful. Now, this is when we switched over to SoftChalk. The colors, the artwork, the videos, the games at the bottom of each page made it fun and inviting. That's what I tried to do, is put a game, whatever I wanted them to learn on that page. At the bottom would be some kind of an exercise or a game, and they love it. And this was, now I've just gone to the cloud. And this was, my 16-year-old and I did the labs together. We both learned, and it was something special, mother and daughter time together. So here I am teaching in the cloud now. This is an Introduction to Public Health course. It was just featured in New Jersey Biz. And what it is they're going to get as many of the community colleges in New Jersey to teach an Introduction to Public Health, but it's going to be taught through the cloud. And we've done the first one at Burlington County College. It's really cool. One student was just thrilled about it, said, you know, it's so futuristic. Now, this is Jim Brown. He's on the beach. I'm in Calabria here, and I was actually teaching 3 online courses for the week and a half we were there. So anyhow, that's what I have to say, and I welcome questions.
Well, let's see. I think you can hear me again. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. My phone just went dead. I had to call back in, and I apologize for the silence. I just sort of decided I was going to turn it over to you, Jim, because I couldn't say anything, and you picked it up without a pause. I'm pleased. So let me give them your bio, since I couldn't do that before you spoke. So let me tell them about you, although they know a lot about you now. Dr. James W. Brown is an Associate Professor of Science and a former Dean of Science, Engineering, Health Sciences, and Human Performance at Ocean County College in Toms River, New Jersey. Dr. Brown is a pioneer in creating online courses and has developed over 40 online courses in science, health sciences, and public health. He is one of the first to develop microbiology totally online. Dr. Brown received a BA from Rutgers College, an MS and PhD in microbiology from Waxman Institute of Microbiology at Rutgers University. He earned an additional Master's of Science and Health Sciences from New Jersey City State College. He has taught at the Johns Hopkins Medical School, and at the New York College of Osteopathic Health Association as an international speaker on issues in microbiology, biology, public health, healthcare, and online education and biosafety, as you can imagine, having listened to him as they go. There was one other poll I really wanted to launch before we actually started this discussion. So I am curious now. How many of you have taught face-to-face or blended or online? And while that's going on, let's change the presenter to me. And I'll just give this a moment. Most of you have voted and responded, so let me close the poll and share it. So actually, there's a large number of folks who have done it all. Really nice to have you join us. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. There's a question of you, Jim, if you are on Twitter. Do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't visit it regularly, but I do. What I am on is LinkedIn, and I do check that religiously. One thing I forgot to say, if I may ask, a big plus I see for online learning is when we started up at Ocean County College, we realized right away, like that microbiology course, the students are coming into it. The last one I taught, only 6 students were from New Jersey. The rest, we actually had 8 from California. By having blended locks it into Ocean County. But boy, if you go online, the world is your oyster. I mean, it really opens it up.
One of the things that let's see, let me do a couple of things. I need to hide this, and let's see. I want me to be the presenter, but somehow or other I'm not seeing the question. So let me see what I can do about that. Show my screen. There we go. Now that works, and I hope you can see my screen. There's a couple of questions, though, because we're not done with the question that has come to us from the Q&A. And there's been a couple of questions about the other tools you use. It came up when Julie and Kristen were given their information, and also there was a question about how you use lecture capture, Jim, as well. So there's a question about could Dr. Brown say more about using lecture capture for homework?
Okay, with me, what I'm doing, I'm not really using lecture capture per se. A lot of people actually, a lot of professors will actually have a camera on them while they're in a live classroom. A lot of people have said to me, you know, that's great if a student has missed a class to have something like that, or if they really want to go over it again. But what I try to do is I try to make almost like what you see with commercials on TV. Commercials are only a few seconds long, and I try to have a talking head. And right now I'm just trying to put closed caption on the bottom of that. And I have my daughters actually go out and help me shoot the videos. They'll run the camera and I'll be the talking. But I think it's very neat to just be able to explain for maybe a minute exactly what your procedure, what you're going to be doing, that sort of thing. I see a lot of power in that. But anything past 3 minutes, I think you put a lot of people to sleep. That's
yeah, I agree with you, Jim. You need them to be real specific to the concept so that they can, it's a blip in time that they can gather it quickly.
Exactly. One of the questions that just came up is how do you encourage your students to use SoftChalk lessons in blended courses so they can benefit from the activities that you insert in the site? So there's, are you using it in a blended environment? I think Julie and Kristen were, but I'm not sure Jim is.
Oh, sure. I'm using it in the live classroom. I put it right up, embed it in my PowerPoint, and it goes right on out, pulls it right in, and it's so cool. We do the crossword puzzles right in class in front of everybody. I love that. So a lot of the games I'll actually have there, and it's a lot of fun. So I definitely use it for I guess you'd call that blended technically, but I use it all the time now, just every time I teach.
We do that. Go ahead, Patricia.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We use it in our library instruction in the same way. We have the students in our library classroom, and we're projecting to them, and then they actually can do little activities right there. Especially we like to use it. It's very difficult for our students to understand citation, especially if it's not MLA. They barely understand that, and when an instructor throws APA out at them, they're really in a funk. So we do a lot of little activities showing them how to correctly cite things, and that's a great hands-on activity right there in the classroom.
I've used it in blended classrooms. Before coming into my face-to-face component, I will have some SoftChalk games or a component on it, and I'll have 2 or 3 different ones that they're assigned to, and it'll almost be a competition who can get the most correct or whatever. So when they come to class, they want to see how their team did compared to the other teams on these lessons. And the lessons, of course, are about what I'm about to work with in the classroom. So I know that they've gone over that material, at least briefly, before coming to the classroom.
Great, great. There's a comment here from Anne that says, to keep my students on track, she requires that they, let me make sure it stays still. She requires that they log on for a 2-hour session while they work on the module for the week. This works sort of like office hours because I'm available for them to ask me questions and about the activities and assignments. So, you know, there's other models for getting students engaged and sort of in real time at a distance. So I think we probably are about out of time. Let me say a couple of things before I move on. And a couple of questions about how people can get hold of you and ask questions. The final slide will have their email address on it, so you will get access to them. You'll also get a follow-up email on Monday that will include their access information. But as I wind down, let me talk a little bit about some of the questions you've asked, because some of the questions you've asked have been about SoftChalk, and as I said at the beginning, this is not really a session about how to use SoftChalk. So let me mention that we offer a variety of opportunities to learn more about our product and to explore, let's just say to explore our website for information on product features, customer examples, and support documentation. Importantly, there's a 30-day free subscription to SoftChalk Cloud. So jump on, go log into SoftChalk Cloud, get a 30-day trial, see how magic it is. We have these Innovators in Online Learning webinars regularly. We have 2 more of this series left for the next 2 Fridays, and we're setting up additional ones through the rest of the fall and into the spring on a variety of really interesting topics, so stay tuned for those. If your institution wants a private webinar, please let us know. We provide training and video tutorials and short courses. The short course training pieces are brand new and they're wonderful. So take a look at our website and under Learn More and Training, and you'll see it there. We've got a newsletter that just came out, and actually our newsletter is going to change form, and next month you'll see a brand new work. And of course, with social media, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And as I promised, here's the contact information for all of us. This webinar has been recorded, so you will get a link to that very soon, probably on Monday, although the archive will probably be up before then, so you can check out our website this weekend. Again, I want to thank Trish and Julie and Kristen and Jim for an excellent presentation, for a job well done, and I am so sorry that my sound just dropped out in the middle. And Jim, thank you for just picking up and figuring out that it was